Hey guys, in this video I will be showing you how to put together your flute, where to put your fingers, and how to hold your instrument properly. Let's get started. Before we start putting our instrument together, let's look at how the flute looks inside the case. We've already talked about the pieces, but we have our head joint, and notice when the head joint is in the case that the lip plate is always towards the center. If you were to put it in backwards with the lip plate towards the outside of the case, then when you try to close the top, it wouldn't close completely and you would have to force it and you would end up doing damage to your instrument. So the lip plate always goes towards the center of the case. You may also have your cleaning rod inside the case. And then you've got your foot joint. There is only one way that your foot joint can go. And you can see there's kind of indentions in the case there, and the flute parts fit perfectly. And then you've got the body of the flute, and this key right here that is hanging off of your instrument is always going to be towards the center of the case. If you were to put the body in the case backwards, it doesn't really fit. And if you try to close the top, it's going to bend this key right here. So we always make sure that the key is towards the center so that it's protected by the case. Now that we've looked at the flute parts inside the case, let's go ahead and start taking them out and putting them together. So you're going to start with the body of your flute, and you want to grab it with your left hand on the barrel of the flute. The barrel of the flute is the part here that has the words. It normally says the brand that your flute is. We're going to grab the flute by the barrel, and the rest of the flute is going to be hanging down from the left hand. Then you're going to grab the foot joint out of the case, and be careful to grab the foot joint on the end where there's no keys with your right hand, so you can see. Then you're just going to wrap your hand around it. So now you've got the body of the flute in your left hand pointing down, and the foot joint of your flute in your right hand pointing up. Now all you have to do is turn those pieces towards each other, line them up, twist, and push them together. Now most flute players, when they're first learning how to put their instrument together, they think that you have to line up the rods. So the rod here of the foot joint with the rod here of the body, but that's not actually correct. Whenever we put our flute together, we want to line up the rod of the foot joint, the smaller rod, with the center of the first button on the body of the flute. And then you've got this key right here, which looks like a letter P. And I'm going to be referencing that when we talk about where to put our fingers. But line up the rod of the foot joint with the center of the first key on the body. And then go ahead with your left hand and grab the barrel of the flute again. So then you've got the body and the foot joint put together. And you're going to take your head joint. And it really doesn't matter where you grab your head joint. There's no keys or anything that you can crush, but I normally grab it not on the lip plate just because it's more comfortable for my hand. And then you're going to line up the barrel where your hand is with the bottom of your head joint. Line it up, twist, and push together. You're going to push it all the way in first where there's no color showing, and then you're going to pull it out a little bit so that there's a little bit of that different color right there showing. About 1/8 of an inch maybe, it depends, but for now, just pull it out about that much. And then as far as lining up, you want to line up the tone hole that you blow into with the first button on the body of your flute. And the way I normally check this is I put my head joint by my face and I look down. Does the tone hole line up with the first button of the flute? And if it doesn't, then turn it until it does. So once you get your flute all the way together, it looks like this, with the tone hole lined up with the first button here, and the rods of the foot joint lined up with the middle of the end key here. And now you have put your flute together for the first time. Now that we have our flute put together, we need to talk about where the fingers go. Now before we do that, we need to talk about just our hands. Whenever you play any woodwind instrument, your left hand is always on top. And I've labeled my hands so that you can see them. So left hand on top, right hand on the bottom. And we always reference our fingers according to what number they are. So left hand pointer finger is going to be 1. Left hand middle finger is 2. Left hand ring finger is 3. And then we have our right hand pointer finger, 4. Right hand middle finger is 5. Right hand ring finger is 6. So fingers and hands together we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's really important that you understand the difference between the hands, which one is on top, and what your fingers are numbered. It's very important so that you can quickly and easily figure out where to put the fingers on the instrument. Now we're going to start with our left hand, and we're going to start with our left hand thumb. Now what I call the front of the flute is this part that has all the keys. The back of the flute, turn it over, it doesn't have much going on back here. The only key that you have is this one, and that's where your left hand thumb is going to go. So you're going to take your left hand thumb and you're going to put it on the big key in the back. There's a little one here and a big one here. I want you to put your thumb on the big thumb key in the back. And that thumb doesn't have a fancy name. We just call it thumb. So thumb on the back. And then we're going to come around to the front. And you can see that I have stickers on some of the keys of my flute. I did this because that's where I put my fingers. It helps me remember. So if you have stickers that you can put on those keys, that's going to be really, really helpful for you. But we start at the top. We skip this key. We never put a finger on this key because when we press down this button, it also makes this button go down. So our first finger is going to go on the second key on the body. So right now I have my thumb in the back and my first finger on the second key in the front. Now also notice that at this point the flute is resting on your hand on the side of your first finger right here. Your flute should never be away from that part of your hand. It should always rest on that part of your finger. Back to the fingers and keys, we're going to skip the first big button or the third button on the flute, and then we're going to put our second finger on the next button. So we skip one, put it down, skip one, put it down. And then our third finger is going to go on the very next key. And this is, again, left hand, fingers 1, 2, and 3. Thumb on the back, flute resting on the side of your first finger, and then your pinky can just kind of hang out by this key right here. Don't push it down, but keep it right above. Let it float above that key. And then our right hand. Remember when we put our flute together and I talked about this letter P. I want you to put your right hand pinky on the letter P. That's where it goes. And then put the next 3 fingers on the next 3 keys. So this one goes here, this one goes here, this one goes here. Your thumb needs to go underneath your pointer finger. See how that lines up? It's not good hand position if your thumb is over here or over here. It needs to be right underneath your pointer finger. So if we're talking about right hand, that's finger 4, finger 5, finger 6, and then the pinky goes on the P. Thumb underneath 4th finger. So now we have the whole instrument. Thumb on the back, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm not going to talk much more about this pinky for now. Just make sure it stays close to the P. And keep the other pinky close to the banana key right here. Now, once we get to this point, we do finger exercises to make sure that we're comfortable with where our fingers go and which keys they go on. So you put your flute on your knee. I'm going to hold mine up so you can see it, but put your flute on your knee and then pick up all your fingers. And then when you say the number, put the finger down. So you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it makes kind of a cool popping sound if you press it down hard enough. Take those fingers up again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now notice when I pick up all of my fingers, my thumb, my right hand thumb is still under the flute. The flute is still resting on the side of my first finger. Flute never comes off that finger, always stays on it. Let's do those fingers again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you can do that many times in a row until you're comfortable where the fingers go. If you need to look at it and watch the fingers go in the right place, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's okay for now. You can't look at the fingers when you're really playing, but for now you can. Do that several times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, until you get really comfortable with how the flute feels in your hands, where the fingers go, and how to hold it. Now you know how to put your flute together, where to put your fingers, correct hand position, and then the next step is going to be putting it on your face and playing your first note.